Hi guys, and Gully here with another episode of GTA Fancast on the Wolves Fancast YouTube channel. Now, you'd normally be expecting a review of the last fixture, which was obviously the 4-0 decimation by Burnley. I really didn't think it was worth delving into that performance and learning any lessons from it, just because I really can't envisage it happening anytime soon, and I didn't want the pain and suffering personally, if I'm being totally honest. But I did think it was time probably to have a look at the kind of bleakness of the performances across the whole season. I know many factors have impacted those performances, but when you look at it as a whole full picture, purely from a statistical perspective as well, it's really worth pointing out some simple facts that show how poorly we have performed this season. I'm not going to necessarily give too much of my opinion on the matter. I'm just going to point out some stuff that really just go to show that we are well off the pace with regards to the ability at our disposal. Now, I've gone on to a personal favourite website of mine called fbref.com, which provides some amazing statistical information in real detail of teams, players all over the world, and I'm going to be looking at Wolves in the context of the rest of the Premier League for all these kind of pieces of data. Going to kick off with a personal favourite of mine, which is NPXG per shot, which is discounting any penalties that we have, our expected goals per shot that we take, which out of 20 teams in the Premier League, we come rock bottom of. So I think it's a 0.08 expected goals per shot, which basically means that the chances of us scoring from any shot that we take is far less likely than any other team in the league, just because we aren't creating shots from situations that are likely goals, basically. You can see that from the way we approach games, and I think it's a really good measure to indicate how easy a team is to cope with from a defensive perspective. And this just goes to show that teams find it quite easy to shut us out from getting into good positions to score goals from, basically. Now, sometimes our talent does prevail, and you can see from the fact that when you look at goals per shot, we're not rock bottom of that metric, which kind of links in quite nicely with this NPXG metric. But what it suggests is our talent and quality goes to, comes to the fore with, our finishing. We've obviously taken opportunities that are less likely to be goals. For other teams, many of these situations wouldn't end up in goals. If you have a look at Sheffield United, who we come below in this table of, then it's amazing to think that a team like Sheffield United, who have scored so little this season, are still a lot more likely to score goals from the chances that they're creating than we are, which is a really quite sad indictment of the way that we're set up and the way that we play football. We are predictable, we are slow with the way we move the ball, and we're not proactive in the way we press teams in out of possession as well, which I think all kind of combines to lead to the situation that we're in. And this can be kind of explained by the absence of Raul Jimenez. He might have got us into better positions, plenty of crosses into the box, which we've seen from Neto and Traore, which may have been gobbled up by the likes of Jimenez. But ultimately, strikers rely on service. We've seen that with Willian Jose and Fabio Silva, and really they're not getting good enough service to create good enough opportunities. Closely linked, I would suggest, the non-penalty XG metric is the next one that I'm going to show you, which is passes into the penalty area. Once again, we come rock bottom of the 20 teams in the league when it comes to this metric. And I think it just goes to show again that we don't necessarily have the best approach play in the final third. We're finding it difficult to get into that danger zone, and we all know that if you want to score lots of goals, that's where you really want to be making an impact. With the players that we have in possession of the ball, I think it doesn't really do them justice. We have plenty of talents within the squad. We are obviously talking about reinforcements in the summer and whatnot, but I still don't think when you've got the likes of Traore, Neto, Podence on the pitch at the same time that this does them justice in any way, shape or form. So closely linked to that as well, I've had a look at the goal creating actions, and what you see here is live passes that created goals, what we would kind of normally term passes from open play rather than a set piece. Again, we feature quite lowly on that, partly because of the fact that we don't score many goals, but also because we just aren't the type of team who's going to break a team down from open play and really kind of tear you apart with our passing and movement in the final third. And again, to see that we're below the likes of West Brom, in that kind of metric, it's really, really sad to see and doesn't do that team justice, in my opinion. Now, Premier League era Wolves and Nuno's team have always been associated with being almost perfect out of possession, frankly. We've always been a difficult team to play against, hard to break down. But even on that aspect of our game, we've really not performed. A couple of metrics that I want to point out. First of all, Nuno spoke about the fact that we want to be a more proactive side, and yet still we are the lowest team in terms of pressures in the attacking third of the pitch. That's a very important part of being proactive, enforcing errors from the opposition rather than sitting deep and reacting to everything that happens to you once the ball gets into the middle and the final third of your defensive half. Now, the best teams in the world press high up the pitch, frankly, and it's definitely something that we need to add to our game. Whether it's because Jimenez hasn't been around to lead that press, he's a more mobile presence, he's got the attributes to really kind of enforce the kind of areas that you really want to and able to lead it, as opposed to Willian Jose, who isn't as mobile and finds it difficult to really get around the pitch and make that happen. But allied to that as well, in terms of ball recoveries, we feature very lowly down the list within the league again. So you're talking second balls, third balls, when the ball lands in space, who's picking it up? And invariably, it's not a Wolves shirt this season, which partly might come down to setup, with being sat deep, with being very reactive, but also might be to do with the fact that there's a bit of a lack of desire, a bit of a mentality issue there where, there's too much structure within the team and just going out and getting your foot on the ball ahead of an opponent, which managers can't necessarily do too much about. But there's still a way that you can proactively set your team up to make sure that they are on the end of the ball if it lands in space. Another one that I looked at, which was block passes, we feature very lowly again. Now, if you look at the teams that are around us in that metric, they're teams that have a lot of the ball, so naturally they won't, be required to block passing lanes and block passes and make interceptions in the way that other teams might. But we aren't a possession dominant team. We never have been. And we still, effectively finish, what I would suggest is bottom of the pile on that one again. And it just then goes to show that teams are finding ways around us a little bit easier. They're finding ways to play against us. And the Nuno transition from, reactive to proactive, it really hasn't happened. We still think about his team as being a new version of the Nuno's Wolves that we've been watching for the last kind of couple of years, a bit of an evolution of that, but it really hasn't changed. And that might be down to some of the injuries we've had, some of the results that have actually kind of put the shits up, for want of a better phrase. But ultimately, it's all gone downhill. And when it starts to go downhill out of possession, where Nuno's really kind of got this stuff locked down from a management perspective, then you have to be concerned. And I don't want this to turn into a Nuno win or a Nuno out video. I just wanted to point out some of the context of, everybody's in the same boat from a Premier League perspective. We're all in a pandemic, we've all got empty stadiums, we've all got to go through all these protocols, but we just haven't dealt with it in any way like we should have. And there's so much more that we can expect from this football team. Going into a game against West Brom in the next week, we are all obviously pretty nervous and uncomfortable about it, but who knows how things are going to go. We look fragile at the moment, we don't look confident. They actually look more likely to pick up a result in any game that they go into than we do and it doesn't really bode well for us at the moment. We have got a comfortable league position, we're not going to get relegated, but I think that almost makes it even of greater concern than if we were fighting for our lives at the moment. And what that means for this summer is anybody's guess, frankly. So we'll see how it goes next week. I really can't place what Wolves are going to do and how we're going to play, but we'll be back after a few days of a social media boycott as well. So stay tuned, and hopefully we'll see you soon on the back of a positive result.